Hi guys, I'm back at the same connector here, and I'm going to kind of show you the different views that we have here. These are all part of symbols, so right now you can see each one of these is just kind of floating on here. Like I said, this is the component that we're currently editing, and each one of these things in this column, this column here, are symbols that can be used to represent this component within your project. So I'm going to take this symbol right now, and you can see how I still have component properties and symbol properties. Component properties are the ones we were just in that represent the connector itself. These symbol properties are things that represent the symbol. So I'm going to just copy this symbol name here, so I can go into my symbols tab and can grab it and paste it in here. Hit enter. You can see that it found this symbol in my symbols thing. Again, these icons, you'll learn them as you go. This one's representing that it's a symbol of type connector. If you do not have this search thing on here, if you right click at the top of your tree, you can go into here and say symbol search configuration. It'll pop up a little window on here. You can pick any of the attributes that you want to search by. I usually grab entry with the little arrow. It will move it over to there. I'm going to move that one back out. You hit OK, it'll bring you up with this window. Alright, so go in here, just as before, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to edit. Okay, you can see that it put it up into here again. So if you want to think of these components, the models and the symbols, kind of as separate files, they kind of are. The advantage of doing this in this structure like this is you might have maybe a resistor would be a good example, or a diode, where your schematic symbol would always be the same. And for the most part, maybe your one-to-one or your actual image of the thing for the most part could be the same. The only thing changing are part numbers and the resistance value, and maybe a few attributes. So the benefit of doing it like this is you could create 20 different parts in your library, or 20 different components, but they would all use the same exact symbol for the schematic. You might have a secondary symbol that you could use for your actual form board or your one-to-one view of what that resistor looks like. And you would only have to create those two symbols, and they would just get reused amongst all 20 of those components. Then if you need to make a change, you make one change to that symbol and that updates all 20 of your components. So right now I'm in the symbol view here. I'm editing my symbol right here. So if I right click, symbol properties, very similar to what we showed you with the with the component. You put a name up in here. Here the type is a connector. This does matter what you do. There's many different types of symbols that you can have, and they all behave in a little bit different manners. But right now we're focused on connectors, so we're going to put that in there. Again, class, this is what it used for what's in here and kind of the folder it puts it in. The rest of this stuff isn't overly important at the moment. It doesn't really get used a whole lot for searching purposes. You will notice that they do have a little bit different symbol icons here. These little rectangle looking things are actual representative of a field in the database that it will keep with this symbol or the component. The A's represent that it's an attribute, and T's are text types. And I'll try and explain to you what text types are. It probably won't make a whole lot of sense at the moment until you start using the program. But right now these little X's that are on here are text types. So right now text is being displayed just as an X. If I hit this little typical typing thing on here, it displays what that attribute or that text type name is. So I'm going to zoom in here for a little bit. You can see that this top X was our device designation. We do have MCL part number, manufacturing, maybe a manufacturer part number. There's some technical data and stuff that's in here. The purpose of these is this symbol, like I said, could be attached to many different components, and the text type can take on the value that's in the component attribute, or part of your device, which I haven't gotten into devices yet, but for example, we bring this component that we're editing into our project, and it creates a device called J1, which is of this component DT04-08PA, and that device name would then be mapped right into this field here of reference designator, or device designator. And if we had the MCL part number, that part number that we had attached into our component would then get mapped into this field. So again, you can use this symbol across many components, and whatever values you put in the component or have in the device itself, which is an instance of a component in your project, those will get mapped into these attributes here. Alright, sorry for a little bit of a tangent there, but I'm going to kind of go back. A connector symbol. The easiest way to draw these is to get some CAD data from the manufacturer, if at all possible, and get it kind of cleaned up to the view that you want, if it's a side view or top view. Pay a little bit attention to the units that you're in, whether it's metric or inches or millimeters. Get it scaled properly and get it kind of cleaned up, and then what you can do is you can go into here. You can import the DXF or DWG right here. For some of the images, you can import images and put those in here as well, which I'll get into the preview symbol maybe in the next tutorial. But once you drop it in here, you can kind of see this is your origin point. We put all of our origins typically at the back of the connector. We do have a few of them that we use at the front. But for when you're dropping this in your project, your connection line will drop to the origin point. This little node arrow here, you do need to have one of these when you're putting a connector symbol together, and this arrow always needs to be on the left side, and it always needs to be on the same exact axes as your 0x, your x-axis for your origin here. If your connector view that you import is kind of shown the other way, all you have to do is kind of rotate it around, or you could mirror it depending on how you wanted to show it. And this little arrow we typically will put right on the end. Doesn't matter too much depending on where you put it for your mating connector. If you do have a mating connector, this does play a role on where the mate drops into this symbol itself. So after you get that in here, I typically will hit this fit space requirement. And the reason that this is important, this is kind of what decides the bounding area of your symbol. So if you had a bunch of geometry that was located way out here and it wasn't supposed to be part of your symbol, and you didn't resize your bounding box to be kind of the extents of your geometry, your symbol will act really huge in your project. So it's a good practice to always do this fit space requirement. And as we go through a couple examples creating, you'll see this in the future. I'm just trying to give you a real quick overview. So after you get this kind of set up, you can go into here. If you had wanted to drop in some more text types, you can go down into the list here and pick ones that are available for this type of symbol. So you could actually put a hyperlink in here if you wanted to. If you want to display some other information, say if this was a terminal, you could actually have it so it would display the strip length. That's part of the attribute. So put that in there. Like I said, these values will pull in from the component or the device that it's attached to, so you don't need to do too much of that. I'm not going to get into what some of this other stuff is for now. There's just a lot in here, and you can always tool around in the help areas if you need to, but once you're all done, you would hit save to database and it would put it into your thing here. So save it into your database along with all these other symbols. So in the next tutorial I'm going to get into maybe just doing the preview button and then maybe how to drag some of these different views onto your connector or into your component of type connector. And we'll see you in the next tutorial.